Dante grouped his Divine Comedy into 3 books of 33 cantos each, except for that first book. There's an extra measure in the Inferno, a 34th canto that is outside of the measure, as it were. For Christians, the repeating threes, of course, refer to the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That extra canto sings of Dante and Virgil as they cross the frozen figure of Satan at the very depths of hell, at the extremity of removal from God. As we saw before, Penelope exceeds the measure of the syllogism, and the wandering rocks should not be in this Odyssey at all. And if we take a closer look at episode 10, we note that there is another character outside of the natural order. On the surface, it reads like 19 intimately connected epiphanies, roughly covering 1 hour of Bloomsday, that jump and dance all over Dublin, displaying vignettes of failed and fruitless enterprises. If, however, we take Bloom out of the sequence and consider it as 9 sections followed by another 9, we see it as a mirror for the novel as a whole, with Bloom standing outside of that order. That chart is too small to read, but we can simplify if we consider the episode's bookends. It wouldn't be difficult to find Dante references in many works of literature. Of course, Ulysses is no exception. Still, coincidences make us pause, such as the Italian poet encountering Cavalcante del Cavalcanti in the 6th circle of the Inferno, and consider Father Conmee. What's in a name? Could this be a veiled reference to Circle 8, fraud? Note, however, that Joyce does not use his antagonists as characters or players. Instead, the antagonism is seen in the effect these twin influences have on the people of Dublin. The effect Father Conmee has on those he encounters in the first 9 sections, on his journey to pawn off Dignam Jr.'s case on Father Swan, and then, skipping our dark-back protagonist in the middle or 10th section, the effect the Royal Cavalcade has on witnesses in the concluding 9 sections, as the horse-drawn spectacle moves to the southeastern Dublin section of town and a mall opening. And as the antagonisms are experienced as effect, so Joyce's Dubliners are wandering rocks, not because they have explicit sins or are the slaves to another culture. They are wandering because they lack self-awareness. They're sleeping. They go about their purposeless lives, blithely unaware of their hypocrisy and vanity. The antagonisms aren't precisely church and state. They're closer to shame and fame, the shame of blindness in wasting a life, and of pride seeking the vainglory of fame. Witness Conmee, who has forgotten his hours. Boylan's secretary, reading a book instead of working. And of course, the profligate Simon, who promises Dilly he'll scan the gutters for more coins. On the vainglorious side, we have no fewer examples. Consider Professor McGeaney and the Healy's men wandering everywhere just to get noticed. And Kernan, the buffoon, primping in used formal evening wear. And we can't forget innocent Dignam Jr., proud of the fame his father's death has brought him. He'll even see his own name printed in the paper tomorrow. Imagine that. They'll all see it in the paper and read my name printed and Pa's name. Never see him again. Death, that is. Pa's dead. My father is dead. Poor Pa. That was Mr. Dignam, my father. I hope he's in purgatory now. The strongest rock of them all, Tom Rockford. What's in a name? Thomas is ultimately Greek for twin. We'll see in a second whom he twins. As to Rockford, it is ultimately French from roche, meaning rock, and fort, meaning strong. According to the House of Names, the name is ultimately Anglo-Norman and derives from the first historical conquest of Ireland. This original usurper might be a hero among men, diving down a manhole, but he's still grubbing for money, from Boylan to boot, trying to get his nonsensical turn-marking machine off the ground, while laying off bets to pay the rent. And we mustn't forget that Stephen is among the rocks too, and a double rock at that, speaking Italian with artafoni, what's in a name, in the episode's first half, and moaning remorse of conscience in Middle English in the second half, Agenbite of Inuit, one of the reasons Stephen is not the hero of this epic. We saw Tom Rockford was a twin. Is he Stephen's twin or his mirror opposite? Tom describes his turn-marking machine to an enthusiastic audience in episode 10's Section 9, Lenehan, McCoy, and Flynn Listening. Echoing Stephen, who explained his Shakespeare theory in episode 9 to a crowd of mostly skeptical listeners. If Tom's device is a little silly, at least it's practical. While Stephen must silently urge himself to do, Tom Rockford said. Tell him I'm boiling with impatience. Stephen is all about anticipation and Aristotelian potentiality as yet unformed. Rockford is all about the present. Stephen can only plead, and my turn when, while the practical hero will tell everybody which turn is now on. As a physicist might say, while Rockford can, Stephen cannot transfer potential into kinetic energy. But in the end, they're still both rocks. Lapwing Stephen is no hero. We understand that short on funds he walks in Buck's shoes. Still, he has no reason to be in mourning clothes nearly a year after his mother's funeral, unless, of course, it is to mourn his first flight to Paris. Haunted in Circe by his ghost ancestor, Stephen burbles the anguished cry Milton put into his Satan in his poem, Non Serviam. He draws his thin ash plant, a wispy ghost of Wagner's Notang, and smashes the chimney of Bella's cheap lamp. Stephen turns away from the truth and tries to put out the light. He is not Siegfried, who would reforge the magic sword needful of Der Ring des Nibelungen. Bloomsday night in Bella's, he abandons his ash plant, falls to his knees and beats the ground Mother Earth. Harry Blamires points out the, quote, Luciferian overtones, unquote, of the act, but Stephen is not ready to play Lucifer yet. Stephen is a failed protagonist, one who would wrest old images from the burial earth and use the brain-sick words of sophists, immortal wheat standing from everlasting to everlasting. Even Stephen's name convicts him as the dying Adonis, a fertile but unproductive boy, fated to orbit under the mother's influence. What's in a name? Stephen comes from the Greek Stephanos, named for the garland given the winner of a contest, and associated with the crown given the annual king, the living dying god in ancient religions. In practice, this crowning was a decapitation of Bous Stephanos, the god in the form of a specially selected bull, with a name very much like Stephen's school nickname from Portrait. In chapter 5, he's called Stephanoemos, Greek, soul garlanded bull, and Bous Stephanopharos, Greek, fertile garlanded bull. Bloom follows a moral choice in Lestrygonians to forego the animalistic men in the Burton and dine in Davy Burns, setting forth on the hero's quest for the appropriate taste. Still, what makes this cuckold a hero? The impression we gain of Poldy through the first 17 episodes is of a man used, abused, and refused. He won't get his par today. Everybody thinks he did, but he didn't bet on throwaway. And his behavior in Nausicaa certainly constitutes vice. Not to mention, we know what Boylan plans this afternoon. Puttering around the bookstall while all this is going on gives Bloom the look of any other rock, wandering the streets too much of a coward to confront his antagonist. But that's only one view of the man. This is Bloom's day, and Bloom is on a mission. We catch him not looking for more pornography for himself to inspire his kinetic imagination. Bloom is buying a gift for Molly. Why, we will consider in our next segment.